it's not really about who comes off the ski erg first, because we are so early on in this race. Obviously, in between each functional fitness exercise, we're running a kilometre, but from the ski, we're going to head to the sled push, the sled pull, burpee broad jumps, rowing, farmer's carry, sandbag lunges, before closing out on the wall balls. This is a race. You need to strategize. You need to pace.
One point worth making is Rylan was first into that ski erg, and he happens to have the best ski erg time in the field as well. He's very good on this machine. His 2K time is around the 6:30 mark for this. 6:25, no, 6:30. Sorry, that is faster than anyone's 2K time in this field.
And he's already passed the 600-meter mark. That little graphic just giving us an indication of exactly where the field is lining up. What I find most interesting about him is that he's got a background in cycling. He is an XC mountain biker. That's where his kind of cardiovascular endurance is. And naturally, he still includes a huge amount of that into his training. So rather than doing, like some of the athletes, these really big, long endurance running sessions, he's out on his bike, having a laugh. And we have our first athlete leaving the ski erg is Alex Ronkovic. Of course it is, coming in the #1 seed, the most consistent athlete the sport has seen, podiuming in the last 4 World Championships. And we are at the sleds. What would you say? Is that moving faster than normal?
That looks like it's moving very well. Now, typically you would see an athlete trying to conserve their legs by braking halfway in the lane. If they're not needing to do that, then you can see that they're feeling very good. Now, they may still do it even if they are feeling good, just to save their legs for the rest of the race. But that sled there looks like it's moving well, certainly. And the indications are from like the age group athletes that have been competing today is the sleds that are going pretty well.
We've got Ryan Kent there on the right-hand side of your screen, but first into it was Rylan Shadegg. They're both strong athletes. Kent in particular has got a great reputation on the sled push and pull. It's a very comfortable implement for him. He is probably on the bigger side when it comes to kind of like the muscle weight that these athletes carry. He is well used to the American way.
Yeah, he's had to push the American sleds for most of his Hyrox career. He won't get caught out by them, certainly. I think Ryan Kent has been caught out previously by trying to push too hard on these sleds, and I think he's accepted that he doesn't need to lead from the early stages of the race. He trusts himself now, so.
One of the most interesting things I am speaking to Ryan earlier was that his main focus this year has been training the back half of the race, which I think is something that's always kind of caught him out in years gone by. So I think we will truly start to see whether he is capable and what he intends to do in this race, kind of once we get past the burpee broad jumps.
Yeah, and he's actually strong on the next station. The sled pull is one of his strongest stations as well. So, yeah, the back half of the race is obviously worth working on, but he can catch up very soon.
So your top two, Alexander Ronkovic and Rylan Shadegg, looks like they're first off the sleds and back out onto that 1 kilometre run.
If you compare this track, for example, to what we had in Manchester for the elite race, where they had to do 4 laps per kilometre, it's such a significant difference. The runners can really open their legs on those long straights. Conversely, those 4 laps in Manchester was some kind of a leveler, really. I think the non-runners would have appreciated those.
As you can see, the athletes coming back into the rock zone. Number 3, the sled pull. Ronkovic, Rylan Shadegg. A real battle happening on our hands. With the sleds, they have to run to the far side of the grid before they get going. That's something that they didn't have to do prior. All of the running has to happen down those burpee broad jump marker lanes to keep the lanes free for the judging and the sled work. They are working through.
Okay, so it looks like Ryan Kent is leading. Ronkovic is in third, but we think Tim Venish is out of the race. So maybe that old injury has come back to haunt him, unfortunately. He'll be absolutely gutted because he's worked on that through the summer, and he must have been really encouraged by coming back and doing the relay, setting the world record. Must have been feeling good. So for that to come undone to a certain extent so early in this race, he's going to be absolutely devastated.
Yeah, it really opens up, though, the opportunities for Ryan Kent, Rylan Shadeg and Alexander Ronkovic to take those top 3 spots, potentially.
And that's Ryan Kent, I think, leaving the sled pool. He's looking very strong. We knew, like I said earlier, Ryan is very, very strong on the sled pool. And he's opened up quite a significant gap here, and that's Alex Ronkovic following him out now, maybe 10 seconds behind there. Ryan Shadeg looks like he's going to be leaving in third place.
Ryan Kent as well has given up his job as a UPS, and he is now a full-time dad and training athlete. Now, can you imagine the confidence that must give you, Greg, to be able to dedicate your entire life to training and also your young child?
Yeah, I heard him saying, like, this is the first time in his Hyrox career, which has been very successful, that he's been able to dedicate really to training. It feels like he's more like a full-time athlete now, and is benefiting from that. He raced quite early in this season. I think it was early September, he raced in Dubai, 59-minute time.
That was Jonathan Wynn on the right of your screen, just entering the workout station. And onto, in my experienced jokes opinion, the worst section possible, the burpee broad jumps. When you think you're kind of trying to manage your cardiovascular output and your heart rate on the runs, and then you come into this and you're trying to do it at speed, the compression of your chest when you're going up and down, the explosiveness of the jumping, it really is a whole new challenge. The runners, as you can imagine, obviously find this a slightly simpler station to the sleds, and this is why this can be somewhat of a turning point. Ryan Kent told me earlier this is where he plans to lead. It's all about be broad, and as we've mentioned plenty of times before, he's really confident now about the second half of this race, but his strategy was that this is going to be the turning point.
This is a station as well where ideally it's easier said than done, but you just want to try and be consistent here. Just pace yourself very well. It's not like you want to do 5 really quick ones and then lie on the floor for 10 seconds and then do another 5. You want to try and be consistent, and that's what these guys look like they're doing. And they're just chipping away at this, chipping away. Now this is really the first time as well where the grid comes into play, and the grid can be different from a normal race because there's more turns here. So you get to the end of the lane and there's that temptation as you turn to just stand there and have a little break, and that can eat a few seconds into your race where it might otherwise not do. Now these guys are experienced, they'll know that, but there is still that temptation because this station in particular can jack your heart rate sky high.
I speak from experience. Your 1, 2 and 3 so far, Ryan Kent, Rylan Shadeg and Alexander Ronkovic. But Ryan Kent is the first off. Shadeg with maybe a couple more meters to go before he can join him. Shadeg obviously a very experienced runner. You saw him check his watch there just on timings before he set off on the next kilometer. Seems like we're going to have a real battle for third, potentially, between Shadeg and Ronkovic. Ryan Kent, though, creating a bit of a buffer for himself. So we just had a big dog enter the building. Chris Hinshaw has stood over my right-hand shoulder, watching on. Chris, jump in, come and have a chat with me.
My feeling is that once these athletes get to the row, there's the opportunity for them to collect themselves, to regroup. I'll tell you what's interesting for me is that when they look at the run, one of the slower runs is right after the burpee broad jump. The key will be that run that follows the next one. That typically is faster for everybody. If it's not, that's a sign that you've actually pushed too hard too soon.
So that's really interesting because my run after the burpee broad jumps is useless because I am broken. We're onto the row. Ryan Kent looks to be establishing a pretty significant lead, but Rylan Shadeg has not left his side. You speak about that transition to the row with the ability to collect themselves, but quite often this is the point in the race for these athletes where they're at their most broken. Do you work on the mental side of this kind of sport, and how should the athletes be kind of talking to themselves in this moment?
So here's the key. If you're shorter and lighter, you are at a significant disadvantage within the row. If you are a taller, bigger, heavier athlete, you have a massive advantage. That bigger, taller athlete has a disadvantage when they run. So the upcoming run for them is where the challenge will be. In my opinion, the striking distance for the true runner in this sport, if they're slightly behind, is the run coming after this next row.
We talk about dampener settings, right? When the athletes get to the row, they're allowed to move that dampener one time before they start their first pull. So under this fatigue, kind of how do you work out what that dampener should be?
So for me, in this type of a time domain, this on the rower, I'm going to be looking at my stroke rate. I'm going to set my damper much, much lower. My damper will probably be closer to a 3 or a 4, but then if you're a power-based athlete, a strong athlete, you're going to put that damper up significantly higher, which is going to force their stroke rate to be much, much lower. So really, you have to know the type of athlete you are. So when I'm actually watching these athletes row, one of the things that I'm looking for is their technique. Are they really mentally in the game? So the thing that I look for is the catch. So when they're leaning forward and then they begin to pull back, is there slack in the line? Is there slack on the chain? Or are they actually looping through that movement to keep the tension on the chain? When the mind fails, what we do see is a drop in technique. They begin to make sacrifice because they're no longer thinking as clear as they were on a training day. So that's what I look for, is a degradation in technique because of fatigue. And that's the first sign of trouble.
Rich Ryan there, Peleo Fernandev. Alex Ronkovic is now out on track as well, but that is behind Rylan Shadeg and, of course, Ryan Kent, who's currently in the lead. And Ryan Kent is comfortably leading here in Chicago. Chris, what do you make of that?
I mean, he looks terrific. I mean, look at the speed in which he is moving. And this is, he's a taller person. He's a bigger boy. And the fact is that this guy has settled into a pace that clearly he is comfortable. Hyrox does something that better than any other sport that I've ever come across. The information that they give that participant is immense. I mean, it's truly remarkable. The fact for me, what I would really take a look at is in the balance between the run and everything else. What you notice, which is interesting about Hyrox, is that typically across the board between men and women, the run represents 50% of the total time. For most people, what we see is it occurs in the wall ball, which is interesting to me. Why is the sprint, the finishing kick, the most challenging portion for them? Mainly, I believe, because they underestimate the difficulty. When they get there and they do that first one, they're like, woof, that thing is rough.
Right, we are on to the farmer's carry, 2 times 32 kilogram kettlebells, and already you can see that Ryan Kent is operating at a much faster cadence than his next nearest in Rylan Shadeg. I mean, he is much a strength athlete. It doesn't appear to be causing him too much issue. Greg, we spoke about this. These guys need to go unbroken here.
They do, and again, this is one of those stations where the grid comes into play. Normally, in a normal Hyrox event, you might have nice 50-meter lengths, 75-meter lengths, even 100-meter lengths to do for these farmers carries. These guys are doing 20 meters. They're having to turn each time. That takes energy. That takes time. It really does add seconds, and your grip is going all the time. So the grid is like the farmers carry is where the grid makes this most difficult.
And we are in to your sandbag lunges, 100 meters of 30 kilograms over your shoulders.
This is a really interesting part of the race because this is where Rončević in particular is very strong. If he's going to claw back some time here, he could do it at this station.
He is an endurance athlete. I'm not saying that Kent isn't, but his background in cross-country cycling means that in terms of building through races, this is something that he's exceptionally capable of. Race strategy, something he's been doing since a really young age. He spent 3 years with a pro card in cross-country mountain bike racing. He's raced against the GOAT. I appreciate this will be a very niche thing to say, but he's raced against Nino Schurter, the best mountain bike racer of all time, and he came through with Christopher Blevins, who's a World Cup winner. Like, he was very, very good.
If the sleds were feeling slightly easier, you don't just look for signs of that in the sled push times, because if they are slightly easier, then the impact that has on you for the rest of the race, like it compounds. If you're feeling much better for the rest of the race, then the sled pull becomes easier, the wall jump becomes easier, the running becomes easier. So if it hasn't taken quite so much out of them as, you know, maybe it did this time last year in Chicago, then it has a huge impact on the rest of the race.
Your current 1, 2, and 3, Kent, Shadeg, and Rončević.
Is very difficult now. I'm getting word that these guys are just 5 seconds apart.
This is going to be an utterly amazing finish. Ryan Kent and Rylan Shadeg on the warbles, 5 seconds separating them. They are neck and neck, side by side, the two American men going rep for rep. So we know they're probably going to break. Who's going to hold on the longest?
This is incredible. This is one thing that maybe we've not seen too much in this sport so far. Two guys coming in for the win, neck and neck, and just seconds apart. They're next to each other. They know how quick each other are going. They're waiting for the other one to break, but no one's showing any weakness so far. They're looking strong. They're just popping those wall balls up. This is where maybe no reps can come into play as well. Even if you just do 1 or 2 no reps, that can let the other guy in. That can let the other guy take the lead.
Have you seen Rončević break? I have not. He means business. He's closing the gap on the leading two Americans. If you're wondering why the decibels have gone right up, it's because we are way too excited. Who is going to be the first three to claim their ticket? It looks like Kent, Shadeg and Ronkovic, but only the winner gets an all-access pass to the 2024 majors, 2025 majors as well. This is a huge opportunity. Ryan Kent has got a hand of a judge up in the air, and he is done. Ryan Kent takes Chicago in front of a home crowd. The redemption tour is back on. Ryan Kent is your winner. Absolutely massive for the American. Now it all comes down to third place. Rylan Shadeg versus Alexander Ronkovic are going to battle it out second and third. And it's Rylan Shadeg in his debut Elite 15 race takes the silver. Massive, absolutely massive from the young man on the big stage for the very first time. Two Americans, 1 and 2 in front of a home crowd. I wonder what that does to the girls who are racing next, watching on. Greg, whew, big moments.
Amazing performances, amazing race, and let's just talk about the time as well. That's 55.12 for Ryan Kent, 55.46 for Ryan Shadeg. They're two of the fastest ever times in the sport. Not world record, but seriously fast times. I would need to check. And there's Alex Ronkovic going over the line in third. So we've got three people have claimed their sport for the World Championships in Nice in June. That's Ryan Kent in first, Rylan Shadeg in second, and Alexander Ronkovic in third. And even he, like, a minute behind Rylan Shadeg nearly, but still at 56.41, one of the fastest times we've seen in the sport.
And look, Pileo Fernandez from the bottom of the pack. He came into this race ranked 15th out of everyone, and he crosses in fourth. What a massive achievement for the Spaniards. Absolutely huge. And I know his wife will be watching on. She told the judging team that she wasn't willing to judge the men's races because she wanted to be there to support her other half. And he's done her proud today. Ah, there we go. Those are the scenes that we're all waiting for.
I think this is Rich Ryan going over in fifth. Another incredible performance from someone who's only claimed their place on the roll down. You know, he's been desperate to get into this elite lineup. He went to Spain earlier in the season to try and get a time. Ultimately came away from that race disappointing in the time that he set. But he's gone and he's done it on the big stage when it really matters to finish fifth. I think, again, that may also qualify him for the remaining majors of the season. I need to double check that. But he will be absolutely delighted with that performance.
Dylan Scott crossing the line in a 59.51. Dylan, after the week he's had, a vomiting bug on Monday, a really tough World Championships in Manchester. I'd like to think that kind of result will make him feel pretty good. Just get one on the books. We'll go again in Stockholm or in Vienna. There's plenty of time to secure that ticket to the World Championships.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Very early in the season. I think we've had 7 guys cross the line now, and they're all under 60 minutes.
And as Peter Schiller crosses the line, bless Peter, he's in the middle of his exams for the police force. He'll be missing the Scandinavian major because he's got to take an exam. He hasn't been training. He's away from his child. It's been a really tough build-up for the German, but he's across. A 106.51 for Peter Schiller. Ryan Kent, the winner here in Chicago in the men's race. Rylan Shadeg in second, and Alexander Ronkovic. Those are your 3 with tickets to the World Champs in Nice in June.